We are in Ocklynge Cemetery, if that is how you pronounce it. And this is in loving memory of Percy Stevens, Lieutenant Percy Stevens, 7th Battalion Royal West Kent Regiment, killed in action near Peronne in France, September 23rd, 1918, age 22. And there's his cap and sword. "23rd of September. When was Armistice Day? I believe it was the 11th of November. So that's just 18 days before the end of the war. Bad luck, Percy. There's a monument on the other side of this church saying, in remembrance of all those sailors and soldiers who laid down their lives during the First World War, we will always remember them. Well, there's nobody around at the moment remembering them, unless remembering somebody who's died 105 years ago is something different to what you and I might think remembering means. There's somebody else. Well, there are lots of other people buried in Ocklynge Cemetery. I'm looking for one grave in particular. The grave of a comedian, which reminds me of a quip by Woody Allen, who was asked by a journalist, did he want to be immortalized in his films? And Woody Allen said, "No, I want to be immortalized by not dying." But none of us have a choice, do we? So pick your spot, or rather pick your plot. Oh, there's a space here. Look, between Walter Wilkins and Barbara. Notice the men always get top billing on these stones. The woman is always on these headstones a supporting act. Have you noticed that? Between Walter Wilkins and, can we read this one? Lydia Florence. Oh, she's got top billing. Beloved wife of A.E. Barnes Lawrence. So there's a plot for you. What would you like to have on your gravestone? Always remembered on one day of the year? For maybe you could, I bet there's a social media site where you can put a recurring remembrance, a bit like Facebook sends you a reminder what you would. I got one yesterday. I thought, that's a good-looking young man. It was me from 9 years ago. Oh dear, how the time passes. Yes, you can have perhaps an automatically recurring annual reminder of your death, because frankly, who is going to remember you once you're gone? And does it matter? Is that all your life amounts to? Is that all my life amounts to? I'm reminded of Spike Milligan's tombstone, which reads, "I told you I was ill." I've come to pay my respects, actually, to another comedian, not Spike Milligan, but Tommy Cooper, he's not actually buried here, but his missus and his son and his daughter Victoria, who wrote a book about him, actually, is here. I'm just going to remove this plastic pot. Well, no, I'm going to put it in there. Why not? I don't know if that'll spring eternal in the spring, but this is his son, I believe, John Robert Henty, who was an actor, and his wife Mary Henty. That's Tommy Cooper's son, who we don't tend to hear about, and Victoria is his daughter. And there's just a very simple memorial there to his other son, Thomas John, only 32 when he died. Don't know what from. I know what Tommy Cooper died from on the 15th of April 1984. I was watching it at the time on television, probably black and white. He was doing his usual comedy act, and he fell over and the audience laughed, but it turns out it was no laughing matter, because he'd had a heart attack and he died soon after on the way to hospital. But the show went on. I've actually written a pop song with that line, "The show goes on." Don't worry, I'm not going to sing it to you now. I'm just wondering I'm moving on already. Something else has caught my eye here. Look at the trouble that some people go to with their memorial stones. I am the grave whisperer. Oh dear, forgive me. It's funny, you do tread carefully over gravestones. This is quite remarkable. Although there is a thumb missing and a finger, that's a whole angel carved in. I don't think it's marble. Looks like some sort of granite, actually. In loving memory of Bertie Edward Smith, sadly missed by his wife and family. I'd like to know how true that is. Is also his wife Rachel. Followed him 2 years later, although she was 2 years younger when she died. So, at rest. That's what we want, isn't it? We want to be at rest, preferably before we die. Not just or at all after we die. Oh dear. Yes. Not is there life after death, is there life before death? Can you come to rest before the eternal rest? Well, just musing on this in the presence of a memorial to Tommy Cooper whose ashes, I believe, were scattered in the garden of his son, if I've read Wikipedia correctly, before I came out, somewhere in London. So this is really just an in memoriam stone. There's no part of Tommy Cooper here, but he made a career out of failure, which is a very interesting and laudable sort of reversal of modern obsession with fame, isn't it? Where on social media in particular, I've never watched the Kardashians or the Osbournes or any of those, but the aspiration seems to me to be for fame for its own sake, famous for being famous. What's that about? Well, that's our modern social media culture. But to be famous for being a failure, that's a different thing. And Tommy Cooper's USP, unique selling point, was his magic tricks. He was actually a member of the Magic Circle, so he was a professional, but he realised he could get more laughs when the tricks went wrong. And then occasionally at the end of his act, the egg cup or ball, no, what was it, egg cup, ball egg cup, and he'd swish them around, and you were convinced which egg cup it would be under, and he'd magicked them away. So the surprise was the occasional trick that went well. So what tricks are you trying to pull? What tricks am I trying to pull? I tell you, one trick you won't pull off is not dying. as Woody Allen says, he wants to be immortalised for not dying. Well, I think he's still alive, so good luck with that, Woody. I think it is a very healthy alternative to our celebrity fame, success, achievement culture to put the emphasis on failure. There is a podcast which I listened to just recently, this week, for the first time, called How to Fail with Elizabeth Day, which is taking a bit of a risk, actually, don't you think, to put your name to saying how you failed. And she was interviewing Adam Buxton, the comedian and podcaster famous for his Adam and Joe TV comedy series. And there's another hand missing there. Sacred to the memory of Emma Inez. Oh, she's got top billing. The beloved wife of Mervyn Archdale of Castle Archdale. Do you think he was named after the place, or the place was named after him? Late MP for the County Fermanagh, who died at Eastbourne 1874-49. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Not sure I shall be in that company. Yes, how to fail. And they both agreed that one of the surefire ways to fail in your chosen pursuit, rather paradoxically, is to be obsessive, to be a perfectionist, because in both their experiences, perfectionism was the death of collaboration. If you want to get on or get ahead, no, if you want to get on or achieve what you want to achieve, and it involves collaboration, woe betide you, they're saying, if you are a perfectionist, because you'll tend to trample on other people's toes to get what you want the way you want it. What else were they saying about failure? A sort of OCD aspect, recognising your own little petty obsessions. Adam Buxton's petty obsession is his set of ceramic kitchen knives on its wooden stand in the kitchen. Woe betide anybody in the family who misuses or doesn't put them back properly. Oh dear, my father-in-law, he would have been very upset with me if he knew how I not only mistreated but misused by lack of use the tools of his grandfather. When I got married to his daughter, he very kindly made a toolbox, a wooden toolbox. He was very clever in his workshop, made all sorts, and he made me a toolbox and gifted me some very precious tools from his father, and I think his grandfather, but I'll say his father. He revered his father, who died when Harry, my father-in-law, was just a young boy, I think about aged 8. The Reverend Kettlewell of Kesselville House. That's an interesting alliteration. Kettlewell of Kesselville. 1893, age 71. Also, see, Support Act, Margaret, his wife, aged 63. And a Celtic cross, you'll notice. Very distinctive Celtic relief cross. Is that Christian or pagan? It's probably the Christian has sort of swallowed up the pagan like a city swallows up the suburbs. I digress. The tools, I never used them, hardly, and I certainly didn't clean and oil them before they went back in the toolbox. I was a failure of a son-in-law. This woman seems that she's asking for forgiveness for something. Sacred to the memory of Harriet Jane Elliot, 1912. Also Eleanor Mary Elliot, 1918, and Kathleen Elliot, 1918. Sisters greatly beloved and deeply mourned by one another. Oh my goodness me! In the space of, how sad, in the space of 6 years, the 3 sisters, Harriet, Eleanor and Kathleen, all died. Doesn't say how old they were. Bless. Did you know you would be remembered? I can hardly say immortalised on a YouTube video, but I bet that's a surprise. Oh dear. There is a a positive side to failure, of course, because we learn from it. Not necessarily, you see, it's regarded that failure's just a lose-lose, and the reason that Elizabeth Day is has a whole series, multiple series of podcasts, How to Fail, is not to laud or improve your failing. On the contrary, it's to help you be a better success, to achieve more. Well, I disagree with that because, as another of my pop songs says, in a world where winners win, my excuse is wearing thin. In coming second, I can't seem to fail. In any race, there's only one winner. In any in the pop charts, there's only one number one. So everybody else is a failure in those terms. Well, I digress. No, not I. I disagree. I disagree because we're all failures by that count. How many of us have had a number one, or become an MP, or actually I've become a millionaire in my time, at least on paper, whatever that was worth. Yes, I had £1 million worth of shares in my own company. It was valued at over £1 million at one time before the new owners went bust. It was worth nothing. I bet you didn't know that. Yes, that was for my you know, the QR code, which is ubiquitous these days. Well, 20 years ago I invented a round one called Musicode with my mate Roo, and we managed to sell it. I like this is kitsch, but I do like it. And we managed to sell it, undervalued I would suggest at the time, but no regrets, to a Manchester media company who ran with it for a number of years, and we got paid a little bit. So, was that a success? That was worth $1 billion on paper, or a failure because it went bust and never got a payout. It's the same with my tin amps. Poppy Chalcraft, 2003. A tiny flower led not to give and to bud on earth and bloom in heaven. No, I'm sorry, I can't go with those. Sorry, Poppy, I'm not denigrating your presence here, but there's that expression when a child dies. Oh, God has picked a special flower. No, it's a tragedy for everybody, including the child and the parents. Anyway, that is a bit of a distraction. Yes, with tin amps, I had the idea of putting an amp and speaker in a vintage British tobacco tin, and I started making them. I bought the tins on eBay. I bought a soldering iron, I bought a glue gun, and I started making tin amps. And I'm very proud of the Golden Virginia and all the different designs. I sold them. I'll take all the credit for this one. I sold them to Selfridges, I sold them to the Conran shop, I sold them to gift stores all over Europe. And there is a new tin amp waiting for me, the new model. is waiting for me when I get back to the tiny house. I'm going to sell the brand new, same brand, tin amps, but I'm going to sell a new version entirely online through a website. Anyway, you have to sell a lot of electronic products for the economics to work out. So, was tin amps a success? I sold over 2,000. Or was it a failure because really it didn't scale up and it didn't pay its way? This is a nice font, a nice bit of, look at this. Excuse me if I tread on your grave. You could say I was faithful to my creative muse and created tin amps. And I created Musicode, the round 2D barcode like the QR code. And I forgot I also invented Spotify before it was Spotify. I called it with my mate Nick Pascoe. We called it mybands.com, but it was essentially Spotify. Look at this one too. Look at the detail of the flowers on that. The cross, a Celtic cross again. And filigree in stone in memory of our dead girl. That I am close to weeping. There's so much more heartbreak in that simple statement in memory of our dear girl than picking a flower for God's garden. Bless you. Lily and Emma Parkin, how they loved her, but thy will be done. Yes, it's our mortality. It is problematic, isn't it? Was mybands.com a success? We were offered 5.5 million investment in the dot-com boom of the late 80s, early 90s. Do you remember lastminute.com? Well, we were in that entourage of entrepreneurs. Nick and I would get the train at 6 o'clock 2 or 3 days a week from Sheffield down to London, pitching to the venture capitalists, 3 or 4 in a day, and we got offered 5.5 million for our, actually I have to say, the best business plan I've ever read or made up. It was great, but essentially it was Spotify. And the day we went to sign the papers, the dot-com bubble burst and it was off. It never happened. Was that a success or a failure? Well, in hindsight, I'd say it was a success. I'll tell you why. Because I've subsequently appreciated that if you take the money from a venture capitalist, an investor, they've got you by the ghoulies. They've got their foot on your neck because they want a return on their money. And so at a very difficult time, it would have been miserable with huge financial pressure as we started a company at a time where really, if you remember Nokia phones, there were no smartphones in those days, just the sort of Nokia and BlackBerry type phones. And really, as you know, you listen to your Spotify tracks from the app on your mobile phone, don't you? Mostly, 70% of us do. So it would not have flown, and that could have been a very miserable time. Anyway, what's that saying by Rudyard Kipling, which I shall adapt for the purpose? Treat success and failure both as the imposters they are. Here we are. We've done a little round trip of Ocklynge Cemetery. We're back at Tommy Cooper's memorial, and I'm reminded finally of those lines from T.S. Eliot, which I may have on my gravestone. There is no end of exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive at the beginning and know it as for the first time. Good luck.